This is from a person named Miles Jennings, who I think is their head of policy at A16Z Crypto. This group at A16Z is sort of an offshoot research and investment arm, and they do a lot of really good content. They also do a lot of lobbying for Congress around crypto issues. And I think, Ishan, one of the things that you brought up earlier was people asking the question, why would I do anything in the decentralized web when the centralized web is effectively just fine on its own? But the thing I like about this article is it gets into really making the case for why decentralization and then also how to measure good quality decentralization. A couple of
Hmm.
the topics they talk about are giving ownership back to the user, and how that ownership component, giving it back to the user, is the big paradigm shift for Web3 protocols. They get into some criteria here, which is like it needs to be credibly neutral. It can't just be one VC that's running the show. It needs to be a group of folks. It needs to be distributed across a number of different geographies and different clients as much as possible. And the last year is that it's what they call stakeholder capitalism, so that my interests are to serve the community rather than just to serve myself. And I thought it was just a good set of criterias here to kind of think about um, how to measure the decentralization of these technologies. And the last thing I'll share here before I turn it over to you is there's a really good PDF linked in this article. I'll try to pull it up real quick and share this tab with you. It's just a good like matrix breakdown of the different factors of decentralization. Things like who's creating the blocks, who's running the nodes in a network, what is the software client they're using to access those things, who's building, who are the developers that are building it. Is it all one company of developers? Is it an open community of unrelated people that are building it? So I thought it was just a good kind of thorough explanation of why decentralization, because it needs to be said again, especially like after the era of Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX and all the failures of Web3. I know that in past bear markets, I always had this kind of like serious questioning of like, is this Web3 thing real? Is this crypto thing just going to fade out? Was it all hype? And so it's good to see some smart people putting thought into it. But what do you think about the whole characterization?
Yeah, I loved it. I would love if they just turned this into the PDF into a website or like a
Mm-hmm.
Google Sheet template or something like that, so someone could do their own thing. I mean, of course, I could do the work myself. It wouldn't be that difficult. But I thought it was really well written, actually. It went through what economic decentralization is, what technical decentralization is, what legal decentralization is, and my favorite thing in this article was it's not is it decentralized or not, but what is the scale at which it is decentralized? And you can make your own judgment call on what scale should things be decentralized, right? I mean, I also eh, technology is hard because it's so different from like software is hard because it's so different from like how we've lived as humans for so long. But like if you've noticed, like the world has over time centralized, right? And now technology, we're in Web3 and we're like, let's decentralize technology. And like technical decentralization, sounds really good, but if you have technical decentralization, you need economic decentralization. You need a little bit of legal decentralization, but how far decentralized becomes too bad, where like every single person, or a lot of people have to be running their own node for like every single software, software experience, or you're validating everything, right? Like, I think yeah, yeah, I really liked it. It just always brings up like this question of like we as humans, we live in this everyday society. There's like all this trust built in that, I go to a restaurant and they won't serve me food that has been poisoned, or, like I interact with Stripe or something, and they won't steal my payments, and use that for something. And I understand that like they have my data. If I use Instagram, I understand that they track me, but I expect that they won't like share my information, with like I don't know, dark web companies or bad companies that are doing illegal things, right? So there's some trust built in into like how we live our lives, right? We trust that the government will do certain things for us, um, and vice versa. So it's hard for me to conceptually be like, yes, fully decentralization is a good thing, but I do believe in a lot of technical and economic decentralization. But the reason why I mentioned all of this is because I really liked the PDF again, and
Mhm.
it talks about like what is the scale of decentralization, and I think people can make their own judgment call on what they think is like the best, right? And you can kind of like use the software services that you care about. Um, the Web3 part of read, write, and own that am I'm curious to see what'll happen is like the own part. Like
Mhm.
I personally care about what happens to my data, and I would like it to be stored somewhere, and I give permission to applicate, companies that run apps or application layers to access that data. But I can't imagine that my parents or anyone that isn't in tech really cares about like I'm on Instagram and I'm on Tik. Like I've never heard any one
Right.
person or any of my friends on TikTok being like, I'm scared that the CCP is using my data for something, like it's tracking me.
Right.
Never like
Yeah.
this is like, I mean, we talk about it in Web3, and people in tech and the media talks about it. But I don't know anyone who actually cares. I don't know anyone who cares that Instagram is using the way that Instagram is tracking them across websites. In fact, all I hear is how great Instagram is at knowing what product I want. Like
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's scary. Like I said it and it happened. Are they listening to me?" You don't know, but um,
Right. No,
so
you're yeah. No, I was gonna say
um,
there's definitely like there's some I don't know if it's niche or smaller groups that are like maybe they're like very libertarian or they're very like independent rights and they have like a strong feeling even like the early like crypto punks movement that like kind of birthed the Bitcoin thing like there's some amount of good but you're like the broad population they really don't understand the issue that much, and they also don't care until maybe things go sideways. I mean, there were some interesting issues during COVID around like what you can say and can't say. What do you get the platform for? Which
mhm.
aspects kind of a it speaks to kind of a control issue of the data. Like, do you actually control your own data or not in some sense? But I agree. I agree. Like for the most majority of people, like they want to use great services that are free, and they just don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of.